I got to kick this thing off. Can I kick it off? 1, 2, 3, 4. Ladies and gentlemen, listen.
You are now listening to another episode of the Man Listen Show. Before we get started, let's hear a few words from our sponsor.
DD's Daiquiris is your #1 supplier of premium daiquiri mixes. You will love the taste of our classic margarita and signature strawberry mixes. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at DD's Daiquiris. DD is spelled D-E-E-D-E-E. You can also find us at www.dd'sdaiquiris.com. DD's Daiquiris, giving good vibes to good people, one good drink at a time.
Please buy the new book by Arika Nicole Moore, Diabolical Tales of Woe. Diabolical Tales of Woe is a thrilling collection of short horror stories that leave you in an excited trepidation to see what will happen next. Prepare to face one horrific encounter after the next in this captivating novel. You can find this book on Amazon in the Kindle and paperback version. That is Diabolical Tales of Woe by Arika Nicole Moore. Are you in the state of Texas and looking for a knowledgeable loan advisor that will walk you through the process from application to closing? Well, then you need to contact Joe Byers at Trinity Oaks Mortgage. Trinity Oaks Mortgage offers FHA, VA, and conventional loans. They also have a first-time homebuyers program available. There is also down payment assistance available as well. Make sure you contact Joe Byers at Trinity Oaks Mortgage. You can reach Joe at 972-512-8990. Are you looking for a virtual assistant who can help you with your scheduling, travel, research, and expenses? Demi Virtual Solutions is the answer for you. Demi Virtual Solutions also provides mobile notary services. They will travel to take care of your needs. So if you are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and need a virtual assistant or are looking for mobile notary services, contact them at 469-522-9005, and you can find them on their website at demivirtualsolutions.com. That's DEMI virtualsolutions.com.
More Grace Counseling and Mediation Services offers individual and relationship counseling as well as mediation services to the community. At More Grace, healthy partnerships are valuable and beneficial. Please visit the website www.moregracecounseling.com for more information about our approach to counseling. More Grace Counseling and Mediation Services, where we offer more grace and more healing.
All right, so today on the Man Listen Show, we're going to talk about the new movie, Judas and the Black Messiah. It is a movie about, everybody should know who that is by now, Black Panther Party of Chicago, and how it was infiltrated by the FBI, and how the Chairman Fred Hampton was assassinated in his home while sleeping. I know this is something like a movie that, according to his family, they've talked about bringing to the big screen for well over 20, 30 years now, and they were finally able to actually read a script that they agreed with. And so they finally got it to the big screen. What did you guys think of it? What were your expectations going into watching the movie?
You know, I was excited about it because, you know, Chairman Fred Hampton is somebody that I really looked up to as a civil rights activist. If you watch clips of him on YouTube, you can't help but to be fired up and impressed by his ability to articulate his thought, his ability to call out the system of oppression towards Black people, and his fire and his desire to motivate and educate the people. I was a little bit hesitant because of the lead actor that they chose to play Fred Hampton. I had some issues with that. We'll kind of talk about that later, but I was kind of a little bit reserved because I didn't think, I personally felt that they should have somebody who is ADOS play Chairman Fred. I wasn't really too hyped about Daniel Kaluuya playing that role, but I had high expectations going into the movie, and it met most of them. There were some problems I'm sure that we'll talk about, but I definitely had high expectations because of how highly I regard Chairman Fred Hampton.
What about you, Laugh?
I'm kind of the same way. I had high expectations, but at the same time, I know that any quote unquote biopic is based in history, but they take some kind of liberty with certain aspects, and things are added or left out or changed or what have you, just to make it seamless and for time constraint, time issues. So I understood that. I will say that the whole time in my mind, I'm thinking it was a Fred Hampton movie. And then when I started seeing advertisements and I saw some interviews, and basically Lakeith Stanfield was basically the star of the show. So I was like, okay, then it made sense why it's called what it was called. So going into it, I had already tamped my expectations down a little bit about what I thought originally it was going to be.
I guess when I went into it, I didn't really have any expectations, so that's probably why I thought so highly of the movie. Because I mean, a lot of times when you have biopics of people that you regard very highly, it's hard for them to live up to it. I mean, if anybody could do it, Ryan Coogler can do it, but still, I wasn't necessarily looking forward to the next great film, but I thought it was great. And I think that the different angles of the film kind of were necessary to get the whole story. So I liked the way he came at it from a different angle than I expected. And I thought that was a good touch to the movie, in my opinion.
So I'm kind of like Lab. Like, I think going into it, I expected something really great about Fred Hampton, and it really was about Bill O'Neill. But I will say that story needed to be told too, because I think that it exposed the FBI, and that's what people need to see, like at a great level. Like, I like how they put, Edgar Hoover in there just so that people can see he was really the one, pulling strings and, making the calls and things like that. So I guess I kind of I don't know, like I was real disappointed initially when I first started watching it. And then I kind of had to start thinking back and actually reading and seeing the why behind it, why they chose to tell it from Bill's point of view instead of Fred's. But it did meet my expectations. But like I said, it's like you said, Lab, it's Hollywood. So kind of understood that.
Like Lab said, is based on a true story, and they were quick to put that disclaimer out there. So they kind of took some liberties with the story. They combined some characters like the women in the episode, some of the sisters that are part of the party. I tried to look them up, and I realized that they took one woman and another woman and they combined them into one strong character. So I was like, okay, so that part wasn't really accurate, but it helped tell the story. But honestly, I watched an interview with Shaka King, the director, and he talked about how hard it was just to tell the whole story. And I was talking about it with my wife, and she was like, she made a good analogy. It was kind of like the MC Hammer story versus the New Edition story. This probably would have been better had it been like a miniseries, like told over three separate days. So that way you can adequately talk about J. Edgar Hoover and the COINTEL program. You can adequately talk about Fred Hampton and what they did in Chicago with the free breakfast program and fighting the police. And you can adequately tell the story of Bill O'Neill all at the same time and not feel rushed and not have to, feel like you're leaving stuff out in just surface level. Because for people like us who knew about Chairman Fred, we could follow the story, but I think there's a lot of pieces that you had to just, if somebody didn't watch it, you had to kind of explain to them, okay, that's so-and-so. This is the reason why they did this. This is the reason why they did that. So in that regard, I feel like they were constrained, but they still got the job done. So that's why I say it was good, but not great.
Yeah, and if you didn't have it from the Bill standpoint, it would have been hard to bring in Hoover and the FBI. It would have been hard to explain how they tied into the story because Fred Hampton couldn't have given that perspective. So we would have had kind of just the perspective of what he was doing without showing how he was being undermined. That's why I thought that angle that he took allowed us to see the different roles that everybody played from someone who actually was involved with different players in different areas. So he was moving in so many different circles, not just with, he was talking to other informants. How could anybody else have known that or shown that aspect of the story, that there were multiple people out there trying to infiltrate, that he was doing everything at the discretion of the FBI, that he was actually, you know, supportive of what the Black Panthers was trying to do while still undermining them because he felt coerced or forced, even though he didn't seem remorseful at the end. But I think that that perspective, his perspective, was necessary to even tie all of that in together. Now, I do think that you're right about the miniseries. If it had been a miniseries and they could have expanded on a lot of the ideas that they touched on, it would have been a much better film. Kind of like how Malcolm X was long because they wanted to show his progression over time. I don't think they had enough time to really dig into the character of Fred Hampton. And I think that's what everybody is missing, is that we wanted more Fred Hampton out of the movie.
You nailed it right there. That's exactly what I wanted. I wanted more Fred Hampton and more Black Panther Party and less the snitch. But I will say Lakeith Stanfield, man, he played that part because growing up, I knew the story. You know, I watched the Eyes on the Prize interview, and I really like, you know how you just like hate somebody you don't even know, you've never met. Like that's how I felt about Bill O'Neill. And then later on in life, though, I started to like kind of read and I don't know if I had kids, I kind of grew up a little bit. And I was like, you know, at the same time, that was a 17-year-old kid that they coerced into, you know, to setting his friend up and to infiltrating a party. This is a kid they threatened with, you know, 20, 30 years in prison. He didn't have any parents there. So who knows what a 17-year-old kid would have did. So I kind of over time didn't hate him as much. And now when I watch the movie, it's like Lakeith played it so good. Now I'm just back to, you know, I don't care what happened to him. I don't care if he committed suicide or not that night. If somebody else did it for him, who cares? Like it was his time to go. But Lakeith, like if anybody wins an award for that movie, it definitely needs to be him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think doing the history and the knowledge on William O'Neill, he was never remorseful. So I look at it like when Kobe, you know, said those things about Shaq. And, you know, Kobe was a young dude when he did it, probably should have just kept his mouth shut. I'm sure, you know, as he got older and him and Shaq kind of talked about it and put it to bed, Kobe realized, man, you know what, I probably should have kept your name out of it. You know, it was never said publicly, but the type of man that Kobe was, I got to believe that he came to that resolution like, man, yeah, I probably shouldn't even brought Shaq's name up when I was in a situation because of my own doing. But Bill O'Neill said he, you know, he wasn't remorseful. He wasn't a Panther. He wasn't a Panther. And even after he set up Fred to get killed, he wasn't, he said he was angry and he was sad, but he stayed in. He stayed in as an informant and got more people killed and had more people set up. So I don't feel bad for Bill O'Neill as a person at all. I'm glad that he led a tortured life, and I'm glad his life ended the way that it did, because ultimately, you know, we have to have a way to punish these race traitors, and we really don't as Black people. So the fact that he did it to himself, maybe this is an unpopular belief, but I've lost no sleep over it at all, and I don't give him any passes at all.
Yeah, I don't know who lost sleep over, but I tend to side with C on that though, as far as, you know, there's so many different aspects of it, because you could have a larger conversation about why he was even in that situation, you know, and so that goes back even further historically. And so someone that gets trapped or entangled into a situation that he's not the first person ever to be coerced into doing something. He won't be the last, because I heard somebody say one time, you know, certain people, you didn't make good choices, you had good choices. And so when you are in a position where you don't have good choices, you have to ultimately look out for yourself. I mean, it sounds bad, but I think most people, if they're honest with themselves, would worry about themselves more than somebody else. And particularly in his case, he said he didn't know these people beforehand or anything like that. So he didn't feel any allegiance to them. But yeah, he should have said he was remorseful or he regretted what he did. He tried to basically play the victim role in that interview as well. Like hey, I'm a victim too. They got me. And that's what I didn't like. But hey, man, people make mistakes, and hey, karma is, as they say, karma is a.
But see, my thing is this though. In the movie, when they talked about him impersonating the FBI agent and stealing the car, they said you're looking at 5 years. Now I don't know if that's what he was really facing in real life, but they said you're looking at 5 years. When they got Chairman Fred for allegedly stealing ice cream, and they were like, hey, look, we got money. You can go to Angola. You can go to Cuba. And Chairman Fred was like, this money should go to the people. You mean to tell me I do 5 years versus helping the people? That's an easy decision. So, and let's not forget, these two young men, and they were young men. Chairman Fred was 21 when he was assassinated. They were the same age. So that kind of, that argument of being a young man and not being, able to stand up to being coerced. Nah, I can't really go for that because Chairman Fred was looking at the same amount of time and he put it on the line for the people, But
that's why he was him. There are so many few Fred Hamptons. That's why he is who he is, because he's not just a normal guy. He was different than everybody else, and people saw that while he was young. And so, I'm just saying Fred Hampton's different than these other cats. He's different than most cats that was around him. So I'm not going to compare him to Fred Hampton. He's not Fred Hampton. Nobody, not too many of them were built from that mold like him.
I agree with that, but I'm more like what Marv said. If I'm facing 5, especially if you out here impersonating the feds, like you had to know eventually you was probably gonna get caught up. And why he didn't throw the badge out the window while the cops was chasing him, and he could have just got banged on a stolen car, the world will never know. But criminals are dumb anyway. But when you think about it, and even as a child, that when I put you in a situation to where I'm going to say, oh, well, you're going to have to do this 5 or you're going to have to work for us. That's not a one-time deal. I could do that 5 and be done, or I could be your slave for the rest of my life. I'm doing that 5 every single time. And then you don't even have to serve this. Even if it's fair time, you're still only serving 85% of your time, and you can get some points knocked off for being a first-time offender and everything. Man, he easy be out in 3. That's nothing compared to living your whole life betraying people and lying and having them call you up until you jump and all you could say is how high for forever. I can't do that. I can't sign up for that.
Yeah, but C made a good point though. It didn't look like he had any legal representation, somebody that can, put into perspective like that for him. But also, if you do the research on Bill O'Neill, he was a world-class piece of what before that happened. Yeah. Like, there's stories about him breaking into houses, torturing people before he got caught up and put in the position to where they turned him into a snitch. So, and then, to come back to Chicago after you were outed for, putting Fred Hampton in that position to where he was murdered, and then you have plastic surgery and try to come back and, to the city where, you basically destroy the movement. Like, yeah, I can't muster any sympathy for that dude. Not at all.
So I'm glad you guys brought up the point that Fred was only 21 when that happened. How do you think that Ryan Coogler did in actually casting his role with Daniel? I can't remember how do you pronounce his last name?
Daniel Kaluuya.
Yeah, Kaluuya. I know that I think the brother's only like 29 or 30, but and even Fred Hampton, I guess when you look at pictures of him, you don't look at him and be like, oh man, this is a 21-year-old kid. But I really wanted the world to know that he was 21, because I feel like nowadays we give so many young kids so many passes. Like, so many rappers are talking about nothing that makes sense, and everybody's go to, oh, they're just young, they'll be fine, they'll get over it. But Fred Hampton was 21, and look how powerful he was. Look at the words that he was speaking. Tupac was younger than that when he wrote Dear Mama. Like, so I think that I really wanted them to, I don't know how you would, I really don't know how they could have showcased that in the movie, but I just think that that American society does a really good job of taking young Black kids and calling them men, as opposed to white kids or boys till they're 30 and 31. And so I just wanted to see that portrayed a little bit differently. What did you guys think of him cast as that role?
I like I said earlier, I thought they should have had somebody who was ADOS playing that role. I personally, Daniel Kaluuya, he's a good actor. He's not a great actor. In my personal opinion. He did a good job in Get Out. He did a good job in Queen and Slim. Decent job in Black Panther. In this role, I thought he just did a good job because he tried to emulate the accent that Chairman Fred had, because Fred had that West Side Chicago, Louisiana accent, and it almost seemed as if he focused on that a lot to try to carry that out, to pull that off. But if you look at YouTube clips of Fred Hampton, you can't help but to be fired up. And when I looked at Daniel Kaluuya playing Fred Hampton, I wasn't fired up. I just wasn't. So to me, that's why I say he did a good job, but it just wasn't great. And I think probably someone else could have pulled it off. Maybe John David Washington, Denzel's son, comes to mind. But, it was decent. And I just think that it really didn't adequately convey how powerful Fred Hampton was, his ability to motivate people with his words.
I think you're right, though. I think he focused too hard. I don't know if it was his English accent trying to mix all three together, and he just couldn't portray it. But it seemed like I don't know. He didn't sell the part. I think, like we talked about earlier, I wanted to watch this movie the same way I did watching Denzel and Malcolm X. We could still talk about Malcolm X to this day, and of course we know what Malcolm X looks like, but Denzel still will pop up or flash in somebody's head. Like, he played that part. And I feel like, Daniel just didn't do that for me.
Honestly, I guess I was focused more on the storyline than the acting. So I don't have a problem with him as an actor. But now listening to you guys, I guess there wasn't a time where I was just like, I felt as moved by what he was saying as I felt by watching clips of Fred Hampton speak. So there was never a time when I was just like, yeah, this got the same type of fire or same type of passion that you look for in a leader that resonates throughout the centuries for the movement. He doesn't have that draw that you look for in somebody who's going to really, attract people, especially for someone like Fred Hampton, who was attracting people from different classes, different races, and different arenas. So you would expect to have someone with more of a command of the dialect and of speech powers and whatnot. But I mean, I didn't really focus on it during the movie because I was just kind of watching the movie unfold. I was more a spectator than a critic. So I guess I really just didn't care. I still thought he did a good job, like you said. So I agree with that. I guess he did a good job. He didn't blow me away or anything. So, and I do still think of Denzel when I know what Malcolm X looks like, but I do think of Denzel.
But no, you know what? I like all of you guys, I wasn't blown away with his performance, but I think the age thing to me kind of did stand out, like at the very beginning of the movie when he was in the pool hall and they said, "You just a kid." In my head, I'm like, he doesn't look like he's just a kid, so they had to throw that in there to kind of make you think. I would have loved to honestly see some young Chicago brothers that are unknown actors, that are maybe 21, 22. I mean, it'd be hard to get a 17-year-old to play that role and then, and everything like that, but just a little younger, unknown people. And I think that would have helped out as well, because in the back of your mind, like you said, Marv, you're thinking about Get Out a little bit when you see Daniel Kaluuya. You're thinking about Black Panther when you see him. So that's why Denzel stands out, is because he bodied that role like more than, I mean, there's no way. I mean, he got cheated. Yes. Out of the Oscar that year, he got cheated hands down. So
there was no way that you could watch Malcolm X and not be fired up.
Man.
Because Denzel carried the passion and the fire. And he said, "You've been bamboozled." you've been hoodwinked, led astray, run amok, and like everybody was like, ooh, there was nothing that Daniel Kaluuya did in that role that you were just kind of like, yeah, talk that, you know what I mean? It was just, okay. And that's what I was disappointed in that, because when you tell people who haven't done the history, who don't know the knowledge of Fred Hampton, it's a loss for them. So I've been telling people, like, hey, make sure you go watch documentaries so you can actually see how powerful Fred Hampton was. So if Chairman Fred Hampton Jr. and Queen Harry, Deborah Johnson, Fred Hampton's fiance, signed off on it, then I guess we have to be okay with it too. But I think it was lacking. It was lacking in my personal opinion, and that was a big detraction for the movie. And I don't want to pile on Daniel Kaluuya, because they asked him. I saw Charlamagne the God and asked him, like, what do you think about people who say those roles should go to Black American actors? And he said, I just listen to them. I'm not going to argue with them because they're right. It's their right to have that opinion. And I respected that. I respected his stance when he said that.
So do you guys think that it's important for people to take this movie as an invitation to go do some research about who Fred Hampton really was? Like, maybe this is just kind of an introduction to Fred Hampton, but if you really want to understand how impactful he was to not just the Black Panther movement, but to like who we all are today, then would you say they need to do some more research? Would this movie kind of motivate people to do that? Or do you think most people think that they've got the whole gist of who he was off of this, and that's going to be the end of it for them?
That's a good question. I actually thought about that, because I know after the Malcolm X movie, the autobiography written by Alex Haley, like, shot up numbers wise. People were so intrigued that everybody really wanted to read the story and know even more about Malcolm X that they did before. So I'm really hoping people, like you said, kind of use this as a stepping stone and like a tool just to really dig deep and see like what the Black Panther Party was about. The one thing I think Fred did, it's probably, I mean, it's the way of America. He did a really good job of trying to bridge and bring people in. And the Oakland Black Panthers did too. Like, when they were feeding kids, they weren't just feeding Black kids, they were feeding all kind of kids in California. When they started the WIC program, it wasn't just Black mothers benefiting from it. So I think, just Black people, we are compassionate people, but I think Fred more or less tried to bridge that than, the Oakland ones that, I think I probably more gravitated to growing up.
Yeah, it's my hope that they do, because there's so much more of the story that needs to be told. And we talk about Fred, but we just talk about Chicago and how important Chicago is to Black history. Chicago was extremely racist. Dr. King said he never saw racism in the South like he did in Chicago, and how segregated it was. So that story really needs to be told. And I really think the deviousness of J. Edgar Hoover in the COINTELPRO program, and how they wanted the whole story, the whole title of the movie, Judas and the Black Messiah, where J. Edgar Hoover said, we would not let there be a Black Messiah, somebody who is young and who can motivate the people. And when they looked at it, Elijah Muhammad had a strong following. People loved Elijah Muhammad, but he was considered too old. And Malcolm, Martin, Fred, they were young and they had that youthful exuberance, and they were a threat. So it's my hope that people really look into it, because that's still going on today. They may not just be outright assassinating us like they did, with Fred Hampton, might not, but the sabotage that they pull, the agent provocateurs that they put into our organizations, like, you can really see, like, today, you really see how people who are like rah, like, yeah, Black power, just that and the other. And we see, like, later on that they were agents, right? You saw that with the Ferguson movement. And look at Bill O'Neill. Look how he was the biggest rat of them all. He was talking about, we find a rat, I'm gonna kill him, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. We can learn from those lessons. So I'm hopeful that people dig deeper, and this kind of motivates them to say, okay, let me find out about Chairman Fred, the Chicago, the Illinois Black Panther Party, and just the whole tactics that the government pulled to tear down our movement and to keep us oppressed.
Yeah, there's definitely, it's probably going to be an uptick in people researching Fred Hampton, without a doubt. The tactics, though, they weren't new in the 1960s. They weren't new in the 20th century. You know, these tactics go back to the inception of the country. You know, you think about, you know, this year in the NFL, they had guys, you could put people's names on the back of your helmet who were died by police brutality or whatever. And DeAndre Hopkins put Denmark Vesey on the back of his helmet from Charleston, South Carolina, who they thought he was gonna, they just thought, nope, they thought he was strong enough or had enough power to cause a slave revolt. And they came and they killed him, you know, so they've always never wanted a young, exuberant person in the Black community that can what they call galvanize, or that can pull everybody together. And that's something that going forward, I mean, it's still the same. It's going to happen if there's another young Black leader. We'll have to definitely be watching out for him. I mean, that's kind of incumbent on us as well to kind of be the protectors of those people.
Yeah. So with that being said, what would you guys grade the film overall? Not just acting, not just the story, just overall. What do you give the film?
I give it a strong B, a solid B.
Okay.
They tried to tell the story. And like I said, recognizing that they were limited with such a vast amount of information. I mean, there was tons of information about Bill O'Neill that could have been shared. Obviously, the Illinois Black Panther Party, Fred Hampton. I'll give them a B. I'll give them a strong B. The movie was good, but it wasn't great. I think Lab was the one who said it. If anybody wins an award from this movie, I think it should be Lakeith Stanfield, because he really kind of embodied that whole Joffrey from Game of Thrones, you know, that character that you really, really hate. Like every time he came on the scene, I was kind of like, this one. You know, I was just like, this one, right? You know, every time. So I give it a strong B.
Wild Bill. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give it a B plus.
Okay.
Same reasons. I thought it was a really good movie. I was happy to see the movie and the message being shared and told. I was excited about the prospect of people researching Fred Hampton and getting to know him better. I was kind of put off by the amount of people that didn't know the whole story about what happened to him. And so I felt like this can kind of maybe, you know, do something about that, bring more awareness to not just how great Fred Hampton was, but how terrible our government is and how efficient they are at killing our Black messiahs or our leaders when they start to really make waves and strides into improving the Black community. So yeah, definitely a B plus.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with a B on that. I think overall it was a pretty good movie. I'm hoping, kind of like Arika says, it's a gateway for people to further their knowledge, get more information and things like that. And I'm gonna tell you this, one thing that really stood out to me in the movie when he was talking to the FBI agent, he was like, you see, the KKK and the Black Panthers, they're really one and the same, which is different sides of the same coin. And to me, it just reinforced then, why didn't you know what was going to happen on January 6th at the Capitol? If you're infiltrating all the Black organizations, they should have been in the Proud Boys. They should have been in the Oath Keepers. They should have been in, you know, all that. But anyway, that just, you know, it just resonated with me as well. But overall, we'll get a B on that movie.
And they still try to say that to this day. They still try to say that the Black Panther Party, you know, was, you know, they're murderers and about killing cops. And no, they were about self-defense.
Exactly.
There's a difference. But before C gives their grade, I'm gonna say one thing. I don't say I've been hard on them, but I got to give them some props. They were able to get funding and to complete a movie about Fred Hampton in Hollywood. And it wasn't a watered down. Remember that movie Panther by Mario Van Peebles? How watered down
I
Yeah.
forgot
How
about
the
that.
black that
I've never
was.
seen it. I just seen clips.
Yeah, that movie was awful. But I give them props. They told the story, but it definitely wasn't the best movie. You know what I'm saying? But they were able to do this in a respectful way, and they really highlighted the awfulness of our United States government and the police in Chicago, Illinois. So I'll give them props for that, because to be able to secure the funding to pull off a movie like this, that's no small task. So kudos to them for being able to do that.
So I think I'm gonna change my grade. After sitting here discussing with you guys, you made some phenomenal points. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and give them a B. Prior to us recording, it was a C. It was a solid C. Yeah. I wasn't going any higher, but I appreciate them exposing the FBI and actually telling the story. I guess my expectations were too high. That's simple as what it is. I got to remember it's Hollywood. It's not going to be what I want, and I can't compare everything to Malcolm X movie. But I really, like Marv said, I wanted to kind of be fired up. Like, I got Black Panther shirts. I wanted to put on my Free Angela shirt and just be like, hype for 2 or 3 days sitting at home going nowhere. But I just did it. I didn't walk away with that feeling. But I think, like you said, they did the best they can do. We still know that we're censored on every level. So who knows? They might have had other stuff they wanted to put in there, but it got edited and cut out. So I'll give the movie a B.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think it is too.
All right, y'all. I think we talked about it enough. Thank y'all for listening. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Man Listen Show. Listen to our show on YouTube. If you enjoy the show, hit the subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, tell us your thoughts, tell us you like the show, and we'll holler at y'all next time. Peace.
Peace.
I am a revolutionary.
I am.